Hello, St. Francis community, and welcome to another Thought of the Week. I'm Kevin, the youth minister, and we're coming to you today with an alumni of St. Francis of Assisi School, and now recent alumni of Kennedy Catholic High School, soon to be freshman at the University of Washington, Phuong.
Hi, hello.
Welcome to Thought of the Week.
Thanks for having me.
So I kind of did a little pseudo introduction for you, but tell everyone who you are, all the stuff about you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I am fully Vietnamese. I was born and raised in Seattle, Washington. I went to St. Francis K-8, then moved to Kennedy, very small town kind of like.
Very much so.
But being Catholic was a huge part of my identity, my personality, everything. My family is very Vietnamese, and as immigrants who came in the 90s, like, religion was something they clung to, you know.
Were they Catholic in Vietnam?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, like, in the Vietnamese church was like a huge resource for them, and because they grew up in Portland, so that's when they first got here.
Okay.
And the church for them was kind of like a saving grace because like it helped them a lot and it was like a familiar community.
Yeah.
So.
And St. Thomas is your home parish.
Yes.
But you've gone to Our Lady of Lourdes.
Yes.
So you're around the area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so, for you, being a child of Vietnamese immigrants, which for a lot of first-generation American Catholics is something that a lot of people can relate to, because my Catholic family immigrated from Germany, and I'm not first-generation American, I'm fourth-generation American, but like that story of Catholic immigrants coming to a place where you can be Catholic and that freedom to be Catholic is something. Did they leave because of their faith? Did they leave Vietnam because of their faith? Or?
No, they left because of the war.
Okay, well.
But yeah. So being Catholic was huge for me, and it still is. It's a driving force of like all the things and topics that I'm interested in. It's why I'm interested in political science, like going into UW. It's why I think organizing is so important. And yeah.
For social justice.
Yes.
Because I mean, the Catholic Church is not only, as we all know, not only this promoter of the message of Christ, but that message becomes grounded in what we need to do to make change in the world right now.
Yeah, so the way that I think of it is like you can read the gospel, you can go to mass all you want. I grew up going to mass every Sunday. But, you know, to a certain point, for a lot of youth, it just becomes like background noise. Like you've heard it so much, it's been drilled into you for so long. And the way that I think of it is that, you know, have a moral compass, be grounded in your morals through the Catholic Church, but then fulfill that through putting into action. Like go out into your community and see what you can do and see what you can change.
So why do you see that, but other young people don't? Why are young people leaving the church, but you're here saying that, and you're like, this is the way it is, but why are other young people deciding that it's not for them?
Because in their eyes, they see that the church is losing relevancy. They see the church as like they're not doing anything. Like one thing I think is great about my church, St. Thomas, is that they have a community garden, and I think that's amazing. Like that's one way that they can go out into the community and be resourceful, you know. And yes, it's one thing to straighten your faith, but you also need to, you know, help them. Like,
and I do think
your faith can't feed you. I'm sorry.
Well, I do think there is this big difference between the generations of Catholics right now.
Yeah,
the older sort of grown through Vatican II, grown through this change of the church. We don't know what that's like.
Yeah.
We're the children of parents who went through that system, right, and that change. And they got to kind of craft the church. Like people of that generation got to craft the church to be what they want it to be.
Yeah.
And do you think maybe the church is losing young people because there's not enough space for a changing of the actions of the church?
Yes.
I do.
Yeah, it's a part of the problem is leadership styles, you know? Like there's no forum where a young kid could be like, hey, I think we should do this differently. Like, not even just that, like, not only is there not a space for it, young people wouldn't be inclined to, neither do they really feel the incentive to, because they're like, the tradition is already so rich, is so kind of set in stone, that they feel like it's almost useless.
There are very few places and very few philosophies that have been so thought through, like a Catholic doctrine. It's amazing. It's actually amazing. It honestly is amazing. Like when you go and you see how well thought through and debated and argued and devoted people are to crafting this doctrine. And then what I think is interesting is a lot of young people look at it and say, that's too set in stone, or that's too ancient. When in reality, it's so new and it's so fresh. Like, you can take it and say, I need to go out on the streets and feed people. I need to go help get people not to be homeless. Like,
yeah, exactly.
The social action of that.
Yeah, and the way that I think of the Bible and like all the church and their doctrines is like, that's a good starting point, right? But then we also want to be always evolving, and there's a thing called like the sign of the times, right? And I think that's a great example of like how we should be responding to the world as it is now. And I think that's how the church should be as well.
So you mentioned leadership, and one thing that I've thought is interesting is that every young person I've had on to talk with me has been a woman. And I have spoken with more young women Catholic leaders than I have with young male Catholic leaders. There are more female Catholic leaders saying, let's go out and make change, than there are men. Do you see that? Do you think there is a little bit of a gender what do you think about that?
Oh no, I totally agree. And all my like work with like social justice and all that, it's been a very POC, like it's been a lot of female empowerment and leadership. And I think part of that problem is due to just like, if you look at like honors classes back in like I don't know, like the 60s or whatever, like before, like only boys were allowed to be in honors classes, and then you saw that now they saw like that wasn't allowed, like we need to have more girls, right? So they shoved a lot of these girls into all these honors classes, but then the boys got shoved to the side. And I think that's kind of happening now, where it's like, yes, it is amazing, don't get me wrong, that so many girls
you don't mind.
No, I think it's great, I love it. But at the same time, I think boys have started to be like, okay, like we need to give a bigger platform to girls. Like it's time, it's their time, right? But part of that is their voice gets lost in that too. And I think we're starting to lose the balance. And I think a lot of that has to do with culture. Like modern culture, like guys are like sports, it's business, it's entrepreneurship.
The modern sort of elements of masculinity.
Yeah, and part of that has to do with toxic masculinity. And part of it is that boys don't want to see backlash. They don't want to receive hate. They don't want to say the wrong thing. I think girls are better at that. We don't care if we say the wrong things. We just want to get our point across. And it's kind of true.
Well, but I also think the other thing about leadership in the church is that there is a very clearly visible male leadership of the church, the priest, all the clergy, right? It's just men. Yeah. So in a way, like the lay leadership is majority women, which I just think it's an interesting observation. Yeah.
And you could even go farther back and say nuns, they're not the ones preaching. They're kind of in the background. It's like they're doing a lot of great work.
They're doing the work. They're doing like the social justice work.
They're doing social work, exactly. But they don't get the praise for it. It's like it's the priests who go to mass. That's who you know.
Well, and like truly, the first person in the Gospels to spread the word about Jesus was Mary Magdalene after Jesus' resurrection. So the first person to spread the word of Jesus was Mary Magdalene, was a woman.
For real.
But I also think that element you just said about the Mass is vital. Like thinking about the director of outreach for St. Francis likes to say the pews as a launching pad. Like social justice and work on the street is important and great and is necessary. But that conversion of your heart and your spirit beginning at the spiritual service, at Mass, so important too. The integration of like your faith and the conversion of your heart and your soul to then going out into the world. You wouldn't have that if you didn't. They have to exist together. Do you think so?
I think so too, and I think you kind of form like a special connection with your priest, because like I do it with my priest too. Like I connect with him well, and I relate to him because like what he's saying kind of always sparks something in my life where I'm like, oh, I didn't think about it that way, and then I kind of internalize that. It's the priest's words that you kind of mull over the week, and then that's what kind of drives me to go like, okay, like my priest told me this, I should do this, or like and then you kind of go out in the community and you do it.
Right. So what do you think is an issue that you really care about that like your Catholic social identity grounds you to want to work on? What's one issue that your Catholicism says, I need to help fix this? And what's one issue you think the church can work more on grounded in Catholic social teaching that we haven't done enough with?
Something that's really, I hope, really close to my heart is immigrants' rights. Again, my parents are immigrants, so obviously, like, it's huge for me. And I think the church has been very welcoming towards immigrants, and I really appreciate all the work that they've tried to do, but I don't think it's enough.
So the same issue for both.
Yeah.
The same issue for both. What do you care about, and what should the church do more of?
Yes.
Interesting.
Because, I know that there's a separation between government and religion.
Sure.
But I also think that the church needs to be more vocal, and they need to take more concrete steps to making sure that people are taken care of.
Especially when the increasing numbers of people who are Catholic are immigrants to America.
Yeah.
If we're going to keep losing people to the church who are white Americans, who aren't immigrants, and the people who are going to be coming to the church are immigrants from Latin America, Southeast Asia, Africa, which are the 3 geographic zones whose numbers, the Catholic numbers are increasing. Mexico and Central America, the Philippines, and West Africa are the 3 areas that are becoming more Catholic, not less Catholic.
I think part of that issue has to do with, like, America is still a fairly new country, but a lot of the already Catholics, like they're 4th generations, like you are, and they've kind of lost that sense of like helping each other. Like you're not connected to that struggle anymore. And I think the church, like you see, like church history, like they used to have masses like underground, like they got their hands dirty.
You're describing solidarity, like they were in solidarity together.
And that's just lost now. And I think why Catholicism is thriving in like my Vietnamese communities because like they have that solidarity, they have a common struggle, and they use Catholicism to root themselves and ground themselves in that, and I think that's lost.
Excellent point. I think we're going to end on that point because we can't make any better ones. Phuong, thank you so much for being here today. I'm gonna have you back on now. Like that was phenomenal. I should have all 3 of you on together, you, Angel, and Lizzie.
That'd be
and
great.
have you all talk about stuff with me. So thank you so much. Thank you all for watching. Stay healthy. Sign up to register to come to Mass. God bless you all.
And wear your masks.
Wear